Welcome to Technology Brothers, the most profitable podcast in the world. Have I told you about Coogan's Law?
Of course.
You have?
Of course.
I've told you about this.
I mean, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Once you know of it, you can't help but notice it.
I mean, there's a number of these laws that people, repeat in tech. Metcalfe's law, or what's that one? Anything that can go wrong will.
Right.
Those, or Moore's law, the rate of computing is doubling.
Yep.
They're not true scientific laws in the sense that they came out of scientific papers, but they're axioms that define
Chamath's
the way.
law.
What's that one?
Anything SPACed by social capital will drop 90%.
So Coogan's law is the value of a coined phrase is proportional to the square of the amount of algorithmically consumed content. Basically, my prediction here is that coining phrases, like laws, is going to increase in value as feeds and just the overall consumption of content becomes more algorithmically driven and more compressed. So as we move to tweets and TikToks and short form, you need to be coining phrases at like an increasing rate. And if you look at who's really popular in tech, they've almost all coined phrases, like it's time to build, American dynamism, software is eating the world. There's so many of these. Balaji has the network state. Lulu has going direct. I don't even know. I talked to Lulu and she said that going direct was not her phrase, but she took it to a whole nother level. Lindy Man, same thing. He didn't come up with that concept, but he's
the
really,
Lindy Man.
Yeah, but he dominates it. Yeah. And so finding a really key pithy phrase that you can build your whole brand around, super key and going to be increasingly valuable. If you look back to the great books, Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, those guys didn't need to compress their ideas down into pithy phrases. No one talks about, Shakespeare's law. You just read all of Shakespeare because that was the only thing they weren't competing with tweets. But now you're competing with tweets. And so you need to really, compress everything down. Yeah. And so Coogan's Law is a reference to that.
Right. There's a guy, Zach, I think I'm going to butcher his last name, Pogrob, who his word is obsession. Mm-hmm. And so he's just constantly 50% of anything he ever talks about ties back to obsession somehow. Yeah. And part of his cult of obsession is pick a word or a phrase that you just become one with, and then you just repeat it over and over and over and over. Yeah. And it works because I don't even know the guy. I have some mutual friends, but I'm bringing it up right now in the context of all these other phrases that are, have become popularized in different ways. And it's just because almost every single time he's saying anything, it comes back to obsession, right? Which is just his rallying cry. So
I have a group of buddies who are in the content world, and they all have these, they call them razors, Occam's razor. Right. This guy, George Mack, has Mack's content razor, which is only create content that you would consume yourself, which is good, but it's also kind of silly that he even needs to coin a phrase, right? But it works really well because it sticks in your mind, and it's this whole just compressing a big idea down. Paul Graham, founder mode. There's a lot that was said about that, but it sticks in your mind as okay, well, whatever that is, whatever makes successful founders, we're calling that founder mode now. Yeah. And there's a phrase for that. And that clearly there was a gap in the vernacular, in text vernacular, where we needed a word for what is the Steve Jobs, Elon, Brian Chesky mentality? And founder mode just slotted in there. So it's kind of
founder
perfect.
Mode for us is listening to our own podcast. Yes. Because you've already had the conversation.
Ideally on vinyl, which will be coming soon, by the way. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, and then you'll be the first to know when the vinyl
hits.
Drops. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. It's a different experience. The tonality, the analog nature of it, it's the closest thing for us to feel like we're back in the room where the recording happened, right? Sitting at this wooden desk, feeling the energy from the crystal ball.
What did our one fan describe it as? A rustic feel?
A rustic analog.
Because you hear the paper
rustling.
Shuffling.
Yeah, we're rustic audio.
Yeah. It's organic. It's all natural. It's a return to tradition.
Right.
It's good. Should we go into the top story of today?
it's hard to follow Coogan's law, but
Well, next time we need Jordy's law.
right.
So we're going to come up with that, and then we're going to be coining a lot more phrases, and you're going to hear them. We're going to try them on here, and you'll hear them here first.
Yeah. That's a whole new segment of the show is new laws.
Just coining phrases.
We're tracking phrases and laws. We could have a chart that was just like, going long and short on these different phrases.
I mean, in some ways it's extremely silly to just think that like, oh, okay, you have some idea, you've written it out, like maybe you've actually put a lot of thought into something and realized something
Taste
interesting
was
is going
the other
on.
one.
Yeah,
somebody came out and wrote a piece on taste in terms of startups, and it's like, okay, does that really need to be said? But in some ways it's controversial.
In some ways it does.
And
I think a lot of people do
memes.
forget about like the importance of like compressing it down into something that can be viral.
It's like it's a meme. They're always memes.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's time to build.
Yep. Solana's really good at that.
Founder
like
mode.
Moon should be a state.
Moon should be a
Like
state.
that phrase is so much bigger than that. It's talking about
Solana's law would be how many times people call you a billionaire in a derogatory way is really equal to how political. What would the law be? Is so there's something there, right?
Yeah, there's something
it's
there.
like if people are getting angry at you and calling you a billionaire, you probably are just a capitalist.
Yeah.
It
really is clear that like he's particularly good at just these pithy phrases, because when he writes a piece, the titles are always really good.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he had one that was like moral inversion, just this idea that
in
like,
another life he was a journalist.
Yeah.
If he wasn't a billionaire, he would have been a journalist.
Yeah. And then, but now he's doing it with the Daily. I don't know if you're subscribed to that, but it sends 3 morning takes, and each one of them has like some sort of clever, pun or headline. And I'm like, how do you come up with these? Because it's really hard. But I guess if you build the muscle, you can be really good.
There could be some real alpha in us just ripping all the takes from him. Just going back through the Daily and repeating them as original thought.
Yeah, as original thoughts.
And focusing more on the algo and trying to grow faster and become bigger. And then he'll be trying to plan his takes out to be like, okay, well, I can't do the Daily anymore. I've got to drop it the morning after they record.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as that's more profitable, then I'm down.
There's a topic that we have to cover. I'll actually wait. We can put it in the reaction section,
Mm-hmm.
but I just got an email that was from this guy Eric Newcomer, who's a journalist, and he says the subject of the email is reflections on Newcomer 4 years in.
Yeah.
And the preview line is Newcomer is on track to generate more than 1 million in profit on more than 2 million in revenue this year.
Pretty good.
Which is fantastic. Yeah. And it just shows that he's living every journalist's dream, which is to be rich.
Yes.
But instead of being just rich and successful, they choose to attack and try to tear down the sort of like crabs in a bucket phenomena.
Crabs in a bucket for sure.
Crabs in a bucket. Journalists in a bucket.
Well, he's a Harvard guy. He's buddies with Max Child. this guy who runs this AI startup. He's a little more in tech than most people think.
Yeah.
And
I
he
think
knows who butters his bread, because he's got the events business, a lot of sponsors at Cerebral Valley.
There you go.
He's bringing in the big bucks. He's not going to be writing hit pieces for very much longer.
Yeah, but I think eventually you just got to tone it back.
Hit pieces aren't going to get you
glowing
to
profiles
to Lake Como.
There you go.
No one.
You need to be a peer. You need to be a peer.
Exactly.
And you don't become a peer by writing hit pieces.
No.
You become a peer by generating huge.
No one's inviting Taylor Lorenz to Saint-Tropez, right?
Right.
Like, she's not going to St. Moritz.
She's climbing in through the HVAC system. Exactly. she's in Hotel du Cap or whatever in the HVAC system, because it's 82 degrees in there. Anyways, we need to get into the story.
Yeah, the top story, we got to talk about Stripe acquiring Bridge for over $1 billion. Are you big in crypto? I'm like generally a believer.
wouldn't-
I like Bitcoin, but I'm not really deep in any of
And
the
we like
Web3
bubbles and
stuff.
speculation.
I do.
Um,
But I was thinking about like, why do we need to talk about this? And I think the real reason is just that, whenever one of these billion-dollar acquisitions happens, like there's a new class of wealthy individuals who are on the scene. And like these founders, they're going to be the ones you're bidding against at Christie's. They're going to be the ones, like if you're fighting for a new allocation in the Ferrari F80, like you're going to be going up against this guy. So you got to know who he is. So we should do a little overview of Zach Abrams and Bridge, just to kind of set the story, because it's a pretty fascinating journey to get to this billion-dollar outcome. So Zach grew up in North Carolina, attends Duke, and he's only done one podcast. I searched all over the place. I could only find one like 20-minute podcast that he did, but it was really great. And he talks about when he was at Duke, his dream.
That might be Abrams' law.
Yeah,
the number of podcasts you do is inversely correlated with enterprise value creation.
yeah. The dude was clearly actually working and building stuff, not just stroking his own ego. But he said that while he was at Duke, his life's goal and his dream was to become an operating partner in private equity.
Amazing.
I love it. And he achieved it immediately. He goes to this private equity firm and he focuses on like opening and closing factories for this auto parts business that they bought. And it was
real
like,
PE guys closing stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's like 24 and he's like shutting down manufacturing plants, opening up new manufacturing plants. And it's like a beast of a time because it's post recession. I think it's like 2009. And it's the auto parts business. Like no one's buying new cars and stuff. It's just like really rough. But then in 2010, he realizes that like, okay, I want something different. There's a startup scene out in Silicon Valley. He moves out there. He starts a fintech company called Evenly, and he sells to Square pretty quickly after a year and a half. And so he gets into Square pre-IPO, pre-Cash App, pre a lot of the crypto stuff, and kind of sees that start growing. So he's a product manager at Square, works there for a few years, goes to Coinbase where he leads the consumer business. And what's funny is that I didn't fully fact check this, but his co-founder at Bridge is Sean Yu, who I believe was also his co-founder at Evenly, and also worked with him at Coinbase and also worked with him at Brex. So
so this is one of those. This story is fantastic because it completely justifies VC's pattern matching. Right. It's like, okay, finance background, so has like extreme work ethic, understands how business works. Starts a company, sells to Square, probably wasn't like an amazing outcome, but stays on with his co-founder, learns the game, is at a hyperscaler, goes and works at Coinbase, another hyperscaler, goes and is at Brex early, another hyperscaler with his original co-founder the whole time, and then starts a new company and raises it 40 pre, which probably felt like really expensive for a lot of people, but they're like, hey, he was sold his last company to Square, he's with his original co-founder, and so the pattern matching is extreme all the way through.
Not technically hyperscalers, by the way. That term's reserved for the big tech companies that are building like massive data centers.
Right. Sorry. Scale ups.
And in the financial world. Yeah. He never like went off and did something random.
Yeah. So when he and he's not like he wasn't FOMOing into fintech.
Exactly.
He started in fintech in 2010. Right. So he's like a decade and a half into his career when he's really building Bridge. Right. Yeah. So I think here's the reason that this story is important is this is the only major liquidity event that I can think of in crypto that wasn't token oriented.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, can you think of
I don't
another?
even think they have a token.
And no, they definitely didn't have a token. Because they didn't need it.
It's all just infrastructure.
But I cannot think of another major outside of Coinbase IPO. Can you think of another crypto company that was a 10-figure acquisition? It's just, you can't think of one.
A similar business would be like Chainalysis, right? But I don't know if they've sold or IPO'd yet.
So like,
but again, that's a company that doesn't have a token. They just do the research, and I think they're doing very well.
Right.
But again,
but it's
to your point, not a liquidity.
This is like
yet.
the Instagram moment. And the funny thing is, this will inspire an entire massive wave of new crypto infrastructure investing. It's good timing. I have a company that's similar to Bridge for Latin America that does stablecoin infrastructure. They're called Minteo. They're going to be raising this quarter if you're listening.
This is Dylan Field posted this about he's the CEO of Figma, And he said, in 2006, I asked Joey Krug, Joey, what are going to be the biggest use cases for crypto? He quickly and succinctly answered, speculation, stablecoins, and prediction markets.
Yeah.
Meme coins, Stripe's acquisition of Bridge and Polymarket. The world is starting to catch up to Joey. And that's like exactly what's happening right now.
Yep.
You have Pump.Fun, tons of meme coins, also just
Yep.
speculation on Bitcoin and ETH as like underlying assets.
Yep.
But then now we're seeing a lot of infrastructure in stablecoins, which makes a lot of
Yep.
sense. It is really hard to refute if you're a crypto skeptic. And then Polymarket, which is obviously like taking
Yeah.
over the world right now.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I met Zach in 2022. It must have been post his initial fundraise, which I think was at 40.
I think he did two rounds, like a seed
Maybe it
and a
was
Series A.
Yeah.
And I think they raised 53 total, probably 10 on 40 in that first
Yeah.
thing. And then I think they probably did like
Yeah.
40 mil on 100 or
So
200 or something.
I met him in the context of we were doing a lot of work with stablecoins at Party Round.
Sure.
We supported stablecoin investing
Oh, really?
on chain,
Huh.
which was funny at the time because the reason that what he was doing was important is because we even had deeply crypto native companies that were
Yep.
using our product that didn't want to raise using the stablecoin functionality
Huh.
because it was too much of a hassle once you
Yeah.
had the stablecoins to convert them and all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. So he was solving an important problem. I had already backed a company called Layer 2 that is doing sort of similar stuff to Bridge, more focused on like sort of like banking applications. But I thought Layer 2 was a good bet at the time. They were powering all of AngelList stablecoin
Yep.
infrastructure. Bridge took it another direction. And when I jumped on with Zach, I wasn't, Zach's obviously super smart. I should have probably tried to invest at the time, but he wasn't raising. And he basically just mined me for information for like the entire 30 minutes. Like he was just like
Nice.
not really wanting to share anything because I think he didn't know exactly what he was doing yet.
Yeah.
So he just used the entire meeting to just like, just mine information of how we were thinking about stablecoins. And we had a bunch of crypto sort of companies as customers. So anyways, should have bet big on Zach at that time, but didn't really, I don't know, I don't kick myself that much because it wasn't like a fundraising specific meeting.
It's interesting though.
But yeah, I think it's fantastic for crypto at a time when speculation and prediction markets, like you're saying, are getting all the attention to say like, hey, here's a major liquidity event by the most storied, relatively recent Silicon Valley company being Stripe.
Yeah.
Putting it on the map and like legitimizing it, which is just good because I have a lot of I'm personally heavily invested in early stage crypto, and ultimately I think that it was always very clear that nothing has product market fit in crypto like stablecoins. Like if you actually look at, like I think the most, it's USDT has more revenue on a per employee basis by like 10x than BlackRock.
Whoa.
Which sounds insane, but I think they have like 100-person team and they're doing billions of dollars in revenue, something like
that.
Makes
sense.
So I think that it's very like legitimizing and it's just very positive. The only thing that was unfortunate about the way the whole announcement went down is that Sequoia didn't really get the credit that they were wanting, and so Sean had to really come out.
Yeah, the information really snubbed him.
Felt very personal.
Yep.
He had to come out and say, "Hey, we led the Series A.
Yeah.
It wasn't Ribbit or Han or, Sean was like, I don't even know who those funds are." Anyway, so
they did issue a correction.
They issued a correction.
Thank God.
Yeah, journalism is saved, but it was a dark day for journalism.
Yeah, it was rough. I've actually used stablecoins. I paid a video editor in Argentina.
Yeah.
And because the currency was fluctuating like crazy.
Yeah.
And it was really, really hard. And the fees to get dollars there were crazy.
Yeah. As Americans, we want USDT adoption.
Yeah,
it's good for the dollar.
Yeah,
it just
dollar
allows
dominance,
us dollar
basically.
dominance.
Yeah.
I was on a surf trip with 4 Argentinians when I was 18, traveling from Ecuador to Panama, and I was on like a 6-month trip at the time. And my Argentinian friends had to cut their trip short by like 8 weeks because their currency just got demolished mid-trip, and they were sitting obviously in Argentinian pesos, and so they're imagine getting your budget like slashed like by 60%.
Wow.
You know, so they just literally had to go home, and so yeah, just think I pray for the continued dominance of the U.S. dollar as long as we both shall live. For the sake of our children and their children.
Yeah.
But stable coins are good. You know, stable coins are a big catalyst for the dollar.
It's kind of fascinating. I mean, it doesn't seem like anyone's announced like Bridge's revenue or how big they were. But do you have?
They did. It was like $15 million
so
run rate. So it was like
huge multiple
100.
But
times.
It seems like they have a massive regulatory moat, or have done a lot of hard work on the regulatory side.
And that's what I actually don't. As you know, idea guys, non-technical folk, I don't know what they built that was so valuable that Stripe couldn't build it themselves and felt like they had to. What you don't know is like how much of this is almost like Stripe hedging. Like Stripe's had a lot of stablecoin initiatives internally. They've been trying to build
with Paxos, right?
Yeah, they've been working on this space for a really long time. So I'm excited for it to come out more of like, what did they build that was so critical that they had to pay 100 times revenue or whatever they paid.
Well, this Anon Signal wrote on Conviction Finance, Zach has managed to do the near impossible, obtaining solid licenses with the two major jurisdictions, the United States and Europe, where they are both permitted to transmit large sums of money and exchange currencies on behalf of users, essentially a ramp. One for the Eurozone is located in Poland. The other, a U.S. Delaware C Corp, is located in Berkeley. The U.S. C Corp has money transmitter licenses approved in 22 states, and they got more, and they're close to 48 states now. If not, they already have them. And so it feels like Bridge went out and did all this like heavy lifting on the regulatory side to actually get approved. And then they also have very high transfer limits. I guess there are tiers to the money transfer, approval levels. And so they did all this hard work. And I wonder if that's difficult for Stripe because they're such a big company. Maybe they're like, it becomes more of a political issue. The politicians want to extract more of a pound of flesh or something. Because you would assume that like, okay, a bigger company would actually have an easier time getting transmitter licenses.
Yeah, but it's sort of interesting. Stripe knows how important stablecoins are to their business long term. Mm-hmm. Did they only spend like $50 million trying to make this happen? Did they spend $100 million internally? Did they spend $500 million internally and like fail? Yeah. Right? I just don't know why they didn't have the lobbying power. They have the technical prowess and the like war chest to have made this happen. And so maybe Zach is, who knows? Maybe Zach, plays like, oh, I'm a nice guy. I don't do podcasts. I'm just interested in money. But then behind the scenes, he just was just an absolute animal, right?
It seems like it.
Just doing deals with the mafia in Poland.
In Poland.
He did what it had to take.
In Europe.
He was in Poland on founder mode, meeting with the mafia to get this done.
Yeah. One thing, I was listening to that podcast with him, and he pointed out this very interesting thing that I couldn't quite get to the bottom of is that there's some sort of like legacy ruling in the American banking system where dollars in a bank account need to be demarcated between checking and savings. Mm-hmm. And I'm not exactly sure why. I think it might actually just be for the measurement of the money supply. I couldn't really get to the bottom of it, but he said that like one of the things that the stablecoin infrastructure unlocks is the ability to have a yield-bearing account that then you can also transact with. So basically just merging a checking and savings account. And now like a crypto skeptic would say like, well, that's like a stupid technical feature. Like why can't you just make a combined checking and savings account or a yield-bearing checking account? But it's like, well, there's so much cruft in the legal system around the American financial system that it's like, maybe, you do just need to like have some sort of greenfield fresh start. And that's enough. I don't know.
Yeah. So at Capital, we had a high yield checking account, so it's not that. Mm-hmm. It is a good, I think there's so much platform and infrastructure risk and all of this stuff, right? Like one of the reasons that they maybe had to buy Bridge, I'm just speculating, is that Stripe's existing bank partners had no interest in taking on that level of risk, right? We at Capital, we were rolling out a stablecoin custody product when we were informed by our bank partner that we were going to have to jettison a lot of our digital asset oriented customers. And so our entire product strategy like fell apart because we couldn't do the thing that our customers wanted. And in fact had to be like, hey, you guys should like leave basically. Yeah. So there's so much, that is, I feel like the whole Bridge story is such a good example of risk taking, right? There's so much that Bridge was trying to do that when they started was unclear if it was even going to be possible. And so oftentimes opportunities like that attract unsophisticated founders that don't know what they're getting themselves into. And then founders that are sophisticated and already successful and comfortable with the risk, right? Yeah. Because a lot of people would have said like, oh, what you're trying to do is you're going to get destroyed by Stripe, or you're going to get destroyed by Block and Square, or oh, what you're trying to do, like no bank's going to allow that, or you're never going to get money transmitter licenses, or whatever the things that there would have been a lot of ways to if you were writing an investment memo on the business, be like, what could go wrong here? And Zach, I'm sure, was totally aware of all of those risks and still comfortable with it. And it shows that there's so much alpha in just being okay with the fact that you're taking on a lot of regulatory risk, you're taking on a lot of platform risk, and you need to just, that's part of what creates these sort of exponential opportunities.
Do you think there'll ever be a stablecoin depegging? In the sense that, like, normally when a stablecoin depegs, it's like a disaster because it means that like it's been discovered that they don't actually hold the assets. But I wonder if in the future stablecoins become so popular that they essentially become global, super valuable, and then the US, the Fed is like printing too many dollars, and the dollars become inflationary, and and just like the dollar went off the gold standard. Imagine if USDC or USDT become so big that they say, you know what, we're no longer backed by the dollar because we are more stable than the dollar. Yeah. Right now they're using the dollar. I mean, that's been a big stability.
So that's been a huge critique of so Coinbase has always taken the approach that that everything, like they've taken a very transparent approach. Yeah. Tether, I don't think, has ever come close to the same level of transparency.
Yeah, there's always been questions.
There's a huge amount of, saying Tether USDT can say, oh yeah, we're a stable coin, but it's a private company, and what if they could have been giving themselves, for every dollar that they take in and sort of minting a new stable coin, what if 30% of the time they were like, we're just going to take, I don't know, right? Like you just don't really know what's going on. And that's why they're USDT depegged during the whole FTX saga. There was like a lot of people. It was a very,
very minor depegging compared to Luna, like, which was like off by 30% one day. And everyone was like, okay, this is the end.
And so I think that there will undoubtedly be a time in the future where a major stablecoin like blows up. Right? Yeah, because part of crypto, by saying, hey, decentralized finance, which is another way of saying unregulated finance, or like digital, crypto-based finance, the whole thing has just been speed running why we have all these financial regulations in the first place, right? So if you allow a global team of anons to start creating financial products, similar things are going to happen to the Wild West of America when like 10 dudes were like, let's create a bank. And this is like the cattle bank of, whatever. And they're just freestyling, finance.
I mean, the bull case here is that it's like, yes, they are speed running, like, let's regulate financial products for the first time, but just by virtue of the fact that they are not immediately slotted into the existing regulatory scheme.
Yep.
You're able to take a second crack at creating more effective regulations that make more sense and allow for speed and transparency or whatever. And it's just like, it's the same thing as the people that want to like go and build a new country just because there's like so much legal cruft, because every year in America we're adding like 10 times the amount of laws that we're deleting, right?
Yeah.
So the amount of laws is just growing. That slows down innovation. That slows down the financial sector. And so it's like, yeah, it is the Wild West. It is really bad while it's completely unregulated, but there's a really bullish case for whatever regulation comes. It's just going to be a little bit more fresh and a little bit more from first principles, and hopefully a little more permissive and just informed by the wins and losses of the last few decades in the traditional finance system.
Absolutely. The other thing that's interesting about the whole thing is that Stripe was willing to pay 20% of what people believe Circle's eventual IPO will be. So people are projecting Circle will IPO at something like a $5 billion valuation. Circle, let's look at what their market cap is right now. But you
mean for the stablecoin market cap? Because that's just the value of all the stablecoins.
Yeah, but
so
they
it's
generate
like really, really high, and then they get a percentage on that as their market cap.
You can buy USDC for 99 cents right now.
Depegged. It's the end.
Pegging.
It's game over.
What is the market cap is $34 billion right now.
Yeah. And that's for all the stable coins.
But yeah,
they get a
but the
fraction
reason
of that, right?
that's substantial is it means that Circle has taken on $34 billion and is earning interest yield on that, which right now is somewhere around 5%. And they're giving a lot of that back as incentives, but it's still very, very profitable business.
Yeah.
So anyways, something that Zach and the Bridge team did resulted in it being their $15 million company being worth $1 billion. And we'll find it out over time, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly
crypto needed a win.
Yeah.
That wasn't speculation.
Yeah.
It's not enough to be, even though Pump.Fund, who knows what the enterprise value of a business like that is, right? Because it feels like it's on the most shaky regulatory ground possible. But they're doing, I think, like $100 million a year in fees, right? So that's a massive win from a revenue generation standpoint. But what is that company worth? So I think crypto needed a win, and it certainly got one.
I mean, it feels like this year there's been 3 major wins across all 3 of those. Speculation-wise, Bitcoin is near all-time highs. Like in terms of the digital gold thesis, like it's very, very solid. And so this whole, fear that was being sowed by the crypto skeptics was correct around some of the bubbly NFTs, but clearly it was wrong about Bitcoin because it's had much more staying power than those folks predicted, right? Like everyone was predicting that Bitcoin, once it sold off from 65 at the height, or I think it was like 70 for a little bit during the peak, down to like it was in the 30s and maybe even high 20s at one point. Well, it's back up, and if it keeps going up and down, like it's volatile, but it's here to stay in one way or another. And then you have Polymarket like absolutely dominating like the news cycle and providing some sort of insight and some value that's like much
polling.
more. Yeah, I mean there's the degen gambler aspect to it, but there's also just like the normie value of people want to look at a percentage of who's going to win the presidential election. That has value. People will pay for that. And that seems like something that's more fundamental and more easy to value than like what is an art piece worth, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're a business or a hedge fund or something and you think that there's going to be some economic impact to a Trump election versus a Harris win, like having that data is valuable.
I wonder if this is available to see on chain, but what percentage of Polymarket's bets are on the election versus anything else? Like it must be like 98%.
I don't know if it's 98%, but it's certainly high. There's like $1 billion of liquidity in the election right now. I asked Shane, like, what does he think the next biggest market will be after the election, and I think they have some pretty exciting things planned. I don't believe they use Bridge, but they do use stablecoins on the background in the back end. But they're a very crypto native company, so they're able to implement that. And Zach's been Shane's been in crypto for years in the Ethereum community.
Yeah.
But for so many other companies, using stablecoins is like a huge hassle. I mean, you don't want to roll your own infrastructure there. Like with my first business, we accepted Bitcoin payments through Coinbase in 2013, and it was a mess. It was a disaster. I mean, we lost like $10 million because we sold it too early. We should have held it. Damn. And then also it was just like a nightmare from an accounting perspective, because you basically are operating in foreign currencies and you have to reconcile those, so your balance sheet's like fluctuating left and right. And so you wind up accepting them. And then for anyone who has a product with any sort of return policy, you wind up acting as a hedge, right? Because like, let's say that you're selling,
I'll take that Bitcoin back.
Exactly. Let's say you're selling like microphones for $500.
20,
You buy 10 microphones for Bitcoin. You have $5,000 in mics. If the price goes down, you just sell those microphones and get your cash back, get dollars. But if the price goes up, you return the microphones and you get the Bitcoin back. And so you wind up in this weird scenario where, like, if the price is going up, you tell the customers, well, okay, we will refund you in the currency that you gave us. Or if it's going down, so you're always like playing this weird game of like, what do I give back to the customer? Because you act as a hedge. So it's just really, really difficult. But obviously, if you can just plug stablecoins in, it makes a ton of sense. And that's what's happening. That's actually the biggest win.
What if it comes out that Stripe paid $1 billion because Zach had taken his entire $50 million round from Sequoia and just gone super long on Bitcoin, and then he's sitting on like so the company actually got bought for $100 million, but then there's $1 billion, and it's like Sequoia's like, you know what? We made this bet once with SBF. It didn't work, but you fucking did it.
I was waiting. You know the famous story about the FedEx founder? Yeah. So the FedEx founder, he's down to his last dollar. The company's about to go out of business. Famously, he goes to Vegas, puts all the company's assets on black. He comes up black. He doubles his money. He's able to make payroll. The business keeps growing. Now, the conspiracy theory is that he didn't go to the casino. He went to like a loan shark in Vegas, or like the mafia. But
no, the real Ben, where's my tinfoil hat?
Is the water in the shot for him? Yeah, can you just keep it on the other side or something?
It'd be on brand for me to have water in the shot.
But, the whole time.
No, so I think the real conspiracy theory is that he was trafficking drugs and getting a lot of cash, and he needed a story in terms to say, like, all he would have to do to make $100,000 in cash is do like one run for the cartel, and then all of a sudden he's got
because he's in FedEx. Yeah, that makes
sense. Because he's in the trucking business.
Exactly. So he could be like, okay, I'm just going to do one.
So if you want to create a
hypothetically
legendary story of how you bet your company on the in Vegas and you suddenly came up with all this cash. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to.
That's super fascinating. Yeah, you'd have all the infrastructure to do it.
But anyways, so take my tinfoil hat off. But I think that
I was always thinking that during the last crypto boom, when everything was just ripping, we were going to hear the story of a company that raised some money, didn't find product market fit, but put their whole treasury in some altcoin and wound up with like just a huge treasury, and then maybe they would keep building, use that, and then actually make a win. And it'd be like, wait a minute, that company came out of like stealth. They raised a $1 million seed round, but they have 1,000 employees or something, and they're just launching this product. Like, what happened? It's like, oh well, yeah, because they turned that million into 100 million. Yeah, essentially gambling, and it would be like a FedEx style story. But everyone I talked to in crypto was like, yeah, there's been people that do that, but then they just ride off in the sunset. They just leave, and they just stop building. They just drop out, which sucks. But yeah, with this with Bridge, the one really interesting example that I did see of like a company using this, and it was a perfect example of this was scale. So they have a bunch of contractors internationally. They want to pay them quickly in dollars because there's no fluctuation, and so I think they use a product that's built on top of Bridge.
I love how we say there's no fluctuation of the dollar.
I mean,
meanwhile it's been devalued.
Yeah. But like relative to a lot of these other places,
like
people will be so happy to get paid in dollars on the day that they work, and that's something that stablecoins can bring. So it's interesting to watch crypto like rack up these like very real wins, whether it's like Bitcoin becoming essentially Lindy.
Haters will say it's Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. Well, haters will focus on the Bored Apes.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was one thing that didn't work out.
It was Yuga Labs
Yeah.
that was our customer that
really?
That didn't use when they raised with us, they didn't use the stablecoin functionality.
Well, should we move on to Brother of the Week?
Yeah, this was a tough one.
But first, I need to tell you about NetJets. If you're looking for the ultimate in flexibility and convenience when it comes to private travel, NetJets offers an unparalleled experience. With access to the world's largest fleet of private jets, NetJets allows you to enjoy the benefits of private aviation without the hassle of ownership. NetJets operates the largest, most diverse private aircraft fleet in the world and offers a full range of personalized private aviation solutions to meet and exceed the high standards of the world's most discerning travelers. Tell a personal story about flying on a private jet. Do you have a lot of experience in the private jet world?
Not as much as I'd like, John. I think that private aviation is the last true luxury. It's something that David Senra said.
One of his mentors told him.
What's that?
One of his mentors told him.
One of David's mentors.
The life goal is to get a private jet.
That's the only thing that matters.
It's the only thing that matters.
That's the only thing that matters. Yeah. Here's the thing. You can sleep in a private jet.
Yep.
You can't fly a house, right? So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
Optimize for the jet. Don't optimize for the house.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm surprised that's not more of a thing. If you think about it, RVs are big.
Yep.
And why are people not just saying, I'm gonna buy this jet, or I'm gonna leverage NetJets primarily as a sort of like this sort of RV in the skies, right?
There is this interesting thing where people always complain like, oh, we don't have flying cars yet. But
we do, buddy.
We do. It's just not evenly distributed yet. We have private jets, which you can take anywhere like it's a flying car. And then we also have helicopters.
Yeah.
And if you put those two together,
I'm surprised that
kind of flying anywhere.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it hasn't become more popular to develop something, maybe this is a partnership with NetJets, right? But developing, a city in Arizona that's way off the beaten path that has consistent private air travel between LA or somewhere that's a comparable distance to New York. Anyways, there's, we're thrilled to partner with NetJets as consumers and as a show, and we look forward to many more trips with them in the future. And
so thanks to them. Should we move on to Brother of the Week? We got to give it to Daniel Francis, getting doxxed. You might know him as Daniel Johnson,
DJ,
or Growing Daniel.
Growing
Daniel, one of the greatest posters. He announced his startup Able this week, and it is an AI startup for police, and he's based in San Francisco, and he launched it in an interesting way. I mean, he has over 100,000 followers. Basically, everything he posts goes viral. Like, he's fantastic at shit posting. But he chose to launch this in kind of the most normie way possible, just like a TechCrunch article. But his aura was so powerful that Oh, did he do an interview with Gary or something?
Gary, I think, was just a big investor. And,
So like he could have gone on a podcast. He could have done a launch video. He knows people. He could have done all sorts of stuff, but he went with just the TechCrunch article, which is kind of hilarious and counter.
I think he might still be having a little bit of an identity crisis. He's like, I'm the #1 shit poster on tech Twitter.
Yep.
and I'm building AI for cops.
Yeah,
which
it is a little hard because like, yeah, maybe his account is shitposting. Like there's a couple of shitposters that I follow. Like there's this one guy, Chris Backey. Do you know him?
Yeah.
He ran Lasky. He sold it to Twitter and he worked at X and then he left. And when he left, he was like, big news. Like I'm leaving the company. Like thanks everyone. And he's always shitposting. So my reply was just like, oh, this is like your best joke yet. This is hilarious. Like I can't believe you even got rid of your official badge. Like, you know, this is like searing comedy, great satire on like what cringe people do when they leave companies. Yeah. And so you could see this like backfiring if he's like, hey, I'm launching this like police AI startup. Everyone would just be like, oh, like this is the best shit post ever. And he's like, no, guys, it actually is real. I'm actually like a real person.
Yeah, it's funny to think about him in some Milwaukee police station, you know, doing a customer like meeting or conversation or a sales thing, and they're like, so, you know, we have a few minutes before the chief arrives. Tell me about yourself. You know, do you have any family and law enforcement? And he goes, well, I'm somewhat of a sheriff myself. On tech Twitter, actually. A little town called Technology Twitter. I don't know if you've ever been there, but
I actually met Elon Musk.
But yeah, I mean, I think that this is not. Here's the thing. People aren't going to want to say that there's always, anytime somebody posts a lot and is building a company, all the VCs that suck at posting try to signal them, you know, and sort of like shit on them and be like, oh, this is not a serious founder or whatever, why he's posting it. But whether you like it or not, if somebody can figure out how to post really well, they can figure out how to build a company and get attention and communicate in the right ways to raise money, to hire great people, to get customers. So for some reason or another, the skill set of posting translates well to doing
it's the compression of ideas, right?
Yeah.
So like posting a banger tweet is just taking some sort of like concept that's bouncing around in the ether and boiling it down into something that's funny or fits into a meme format
that gets attention.
Yeah. Exactly. And it relays a complex concept in a very short amount of time. And that is just a valuable skill as long as you don't get addicted to it and you're not just making posting your entire life or like getting sucked into it and having some weird ego boost. But I don't think he has
Daniel, it's an edge because his X income allows him to take a lower salary from
potentially.
Able,
he probably makes a decent amount, right?
Yeah.
He's probably making like 10 grand a month or something, a couple grand a month from that. Oh yeah, Cyan is in here.
Yeah.
Oh, we got Long Journey. That's great. Justin's over there.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And YC, I love it. Did you see his?
I will say, it is the most hilarious business that he could build.
Why?
Straight up, as a poster, to go build AI for cops. I'm totally for it. I want the police to have more funding.
Yeah.
I think that they have gone through a decade of being ostracized and put down and told that they were bad people when these are people that get paid way less money than they should probably to do a job that is very challenging. And you know, half the country seemingly hates you, whether they're people that are breaking laws or people that are just police haters. So I think it's totally a smart move because he can go make building AI for cops cool and attract other smart posters. But it's funny from the lens that I would say that, you know, somebody like Ayush who's building Warp is like a, you know, talented poster. There was a lot more overlap in terms of the customer, the buyer,
the buyer's already
his
on
audience.
Twitter.
I just don't think, you know, maybe 2 cops follow Growing Daniel out of his 100,000.
Yeah, the only value is maybe hiring engineers,
which is deeply valuable.
Yeah,
but
and investors.
Yeah,
like every major VC who's on tech Twitter is aware of it.
The real edge is ability to raise capital and hire talented people that otherwise wouldn't be going and applying for a job at a AI for cops startup.
Yeah. Do you remember his stunt at Twitter when?
Of course.
It was iconic.
Of course.
I got dinner with Raul the night before that happened.
No way.
And we were just like hanging out. And then I went into like a meeting at Founders Fund the next day, and we all open up our phones, and we're seeing like the guy that I had dinner with the night before, and Daniel just out front of out front of Twitter HQ, like talking to Deirdre Bosa at CNBC about how they got laid off and like causing this like viral like fake news cycle, and it's just
that was
iconic.
That was amazing, and it's no.
That was really like the moment.
It's no fluke that both those guys have gone on to build interesting companies.
Yeah, they have.
Because
Yeah.
they're interesting people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think both of them like have the ability to not get lost in the sauce on Twitter.
You could raise a whole fund dedicated to funding posters.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the poster index.
Yeah.
And I think it would outperform.
Perhaps.
There's only one way to find out.
Only one way to find out. Got to fund the posters.
The posters.
It's an interesting category to be in. Like, I'm pretty sure the company that makes the body cams is doing pretty well. I think it's the same company that owns the tasers. I forget what company that is, but they're like a multi-billion-dollar public company.
Yep.
It's just hard because like selling into police departments is it's
not
like
real
DOD
stream
where there's one buyer.
The real play is building Twitch meets police body cams meets Polymarket.
Yeah,
so you
meets
can actually,
Polymarket, so you can bet on it.
Bet on arrests
And what's going to happen?
Chases.
Okay,
just
we're in pursuit of this person. Will they pull over? Will they make a run for it?
Yeah.
Okay, I see a Hellcat engine. He's braking for it. The other company that's done really well here is, are you familiar with Flock Safety?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are crushing it. And
is that a founders fund company?
And
they made that another big acquisition.
Oh yeah, they did.
Aerodrome.
Yeah. And everyone thought it was really, really hard to build like the Anduril for like the local government because it's just so fragmented and you have to go like jurisdiction by jurisdiction. But some people have cracked it, and so if he can figure that out, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I'm excited. So congratulations to Daniel, the brother of the week.
Brother of the week.
Should we do some tweet reactions? I like this one. So Elon Musk has been playing Diablo relentlessly. I mean, the guy is one of the top 30 Diablo players in the world right now, something like that. And so Alex Lieberman over at Morning Brew says, how does this man have time to play video games? I would absolutely love to see a screenshot of Elon Musk's calendar. Would be a fascinating window into elite time management, prioritization, and delegation. And so, yeah, I mean, he's running SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, Boring Company, all pretty serious efforts. Then
Fairly
also
serious.
Campaigning constantly and doing tons of interviews. He's also running Twitter, X, constantly. And then apparently becoming one of the greatest Diablo players ever in the world.
Yeah,
which I love.
And then aren't there people that are saying that he's not actually playing and maybe he has a whole team of people that are playing, so they're warming up the account for him, so he just gets to come on
so
and
one of the other great Diablo players did kind of a breakdown and said that Diablo basically has new season content every quarter where there's like a new final boss and new levels and stuff. So even if you're maxing out your account, when the new season drops, like you have several hundred hours of content in front of you just to get to the right level to beat the final boss. And so in order to be where he is, which is beating, because in this tweet he says like 5-minute T150 clear, which is like the hardest thing you can possibly do right now. Hope there's some mid-season content, because he basically like finished the expansion pack like early. In like a month and a half, and it's supposed to take you like 3 months or maybe longer. And so one of the Diablo fans says like, in order to do this, like you literally have to be playing like 40 hours a week or something like that, maybe more. And so now there's like this theory that maybe Elon has a team of interns or something like playing on his account, doing a lot of like the grinding and leveling, and then he can just log on for the best, which is like amazing delegation if that's true.
It's
the other
giving
he's maybe just playing.
It's giving ammo to, I mean, the guy spends a lot of time on jets, right?
Sure.
I'm sure
Starlink now.
I'm sure Starlink. Yeah. Testing Starlink, making sure it's working. What better way to test the product than to play Diablo? I think that this is potentially giving some ammunition to the folks out there that say Elon's not he didn't build SpaceX, he didn't do this or that. He hires team. That's like that's the number one gotcha that
Yeah.
people like try to get Elon
That's
for
the
is
midweek
like
take.
that. Yeah, it's like you didn't do that.
Yeah.
You hired people that did that, which is like, okay, you should
hire people.
You should hire people and build Neuralink too.
Yeah.
I think everybody would benefit if you could do that. But yeah, this is giving some real, ammo to those people who are going to do a takedown piece, which I'm sure journalists will find a way to paint this in Elon's deceptive video game practices apply to much more than just, online games. Elon's treating the entire world like an online game.
Yeah.
He thinks leveling up is all that matters when,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's humanizing. It's good. Like the idea of, this very powerful and wealthy person like not having fun or like letting off steam at any point is like very blackpilling to me.
Do you think that he is over having kids and now is just like, I'm going to be a kid?
He was joking about it recently, right? He was saying he was going to have Taylor Swift's baby.
That would be
or he was like offering.
I can't
to
wait.
have a
Yeah.
baby with her.
That
So,
part of the simulation, I think
he's down, and I think he's hit such economies of scale with the children that like I would be surprised if it ever stops. I have this theory that like there's a lot of like old dudes who
I don't know.
There's a lot of like old billionaires who are like constantly getting divorced and remarried, and I think at a certain point it's like they just like having weddings because weddings are just like big parties and like an excuse to because you look at I forget, it was like maybe the founder of News Corp, Rupert Murdoch, like he had like 3 weddings in the course of like 9 years or something. He's like getting remarried every couple of years, and it's like okay, why doesn't he just like date or like not get married? But at a certain point it's like he probably has some legal team that can like structure the perfect like prenup, and then he just gets to throw a wedding, and his girlfriend likes that. And so he's just like, yeah, okay, run it back. We'll do another one. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And then when they break up, it's like, they get divorced. But to him, it's just like breaking up with someone. It's like very like low stakes, I think.
Yeah.
But it's like an excuse.
That would be.
I don't see it that way. But
yeah, if Elon should open source his entire family building playbook, including even if he's not getting married to these women, I'm sure they're signing documentation that basically says if we have a child,
you get taken care of.
These are the terms.
Well, he
sends a term sheet.
Well, he got destroyed by Pavel Durov recently because Pavel has like 50 kids because he was not only
he got mogged.
Oh, he got totally mogged because Pavel. It came out that he has like 50 kids because he's been like donating sperm at sperm banks and stuff and just doing like all this crazy stuff.
That's
it feels a little unnatural. It's not lindy.
Yeah, that's not a cool way to have 50 kids.
No.
ChatGPT says over 100 biological children.
For Pavel? Yeah, that makes sense. Over 100.
That's just to me reckless and weird. Just like,
He is a dripped out technology brother though. So
no, I support. I guess I support. I just think that why not just have 50 children with 50 women if you're gonna.
I don't know.
I guess he does. He just doesn't. He doesn't fuck.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to this one. So Will, who I think was at OpenAI for a while, I follow this guy. He says, I don't understand the recent trend of college dropouts specifically raising some insane 10, 20, $100 million at 100, 250, $500 million valuations pre-product or pre-revenue, often for idiotic shit. Are people unable to see how they're fucking themselves? It's not just free money, my brother. And he kind of went on to say, like, he knows a lot of people that were young and they raised too much money and now they're buried under a pref stack, and it's kind of a warning to the next generation.
This is the dark side of pattern matching.
Yeah.
Where pattern matching Zach, who had been in fintech for over a decade, building at Square, his own company, then Square, then Coinbase, then Brex, to go then build another fintech company. But pattern matching, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out to build the social media app, and then go on to make a plethora of devastating, mistakes and mishaps with people and the government and all these different things. And then when I saw this tweet, the number one, the company I was thinking about is a company called Mock, which is making let's
Oh
see,
wait, Mach Industries.
Mock Industries,
I know
which was like
Ethan.
an MIT
Yeah.
dropout, and they're building. I think they're building hypersonics.
It was like hydrogen weapons,
hydrogen powered
big cannons.
weapons.
He was going to shoot
Yeah.
down weather balloons and
Yeah.
drones and just defense
So
tech
the
broadly.
issue is
But yeah, got a lot of money very quickly.
speed running in some of these industries where the stakes are a lot higher, like defense tech.
Yep.
You're seeing some of those issues with Mach, where one of their employees like was hospitalized with like devastating injuries
Yeah.
because something blew up.
Yep.
And there's a real I don't think I'm all for giving smart young people lots of money to do ambitious things, but it's almost like they're find the balance of it, right?
Yeah.
So bet on the kid, bet on the dropout, but go get them somebody from Lockheed Martin to be their chaperone.
That's the under-discussed thing about Facebook. They had some like VP of engineering who was like 45, who was there very early. I forget what this guy's name is, but he was like allegedly like very important in like stabilizing the company early on when it was a bunch of crazy kids running around. And he had like just the right level of respect to be like, okay, when he speaks up, we should listen, but he's not trying to like be like, oh, we got to bring in NetSuite. Right? It's like he wasn't slowing anything down, but he was providing like just enough like, basic rules. Because at one point, like Facebook was all just like one file on a web server, and like when you wanted to make a code change, you would just be like, hey, everybody, I'm pushing the code. Like nobody make any changes. I'm gonna update the file or whatever. Like the files on the web server. It was like crazy, and he like brought in like cool stuff that like cool process that everyone was like, okay, this process actually makes us better.
Sense. Yeah,
which is cool. It's interesting because I think there's two things that are kind of on a collision course with these like crazy high valuations and high early checks. And it's one, that the funds are bigger than ever. And even though we went through the ZERP era and VC fundraising went down, there's still so many more billion-dollar funds out there than there were 10 years ago. So there's just more money to deploy, and you got to deploy it to get the fee. So there's all these incentives aligned with like, we got to deploy big money. So let's push out the IPO window, do more growth stuff. Let's put more money into earlier stage companies, like write bigger checks. That's fine. And then simultaneously, the two hot industries are immensely capital intensive. AI. So I'm going to come in and say, I'm going to do a training run. I need to hire a bunch of engineers that are going to want $1 million a year. And I'm going to also need to buy a bunch of NVIDIA GPUs and do a bunch of CapEx and build out a training center. And even if I'm not capital intensive, even if I'm capital light, a training run might still cost $10 million for my first thing. So like there's just higher computing costs, and we're not in the zero marginal cost era of AI. And then defense is the same thing. I'm going to need to buy a bunch of CNC machines, a bunch of aluminum. Like all this stuff has cost. It's not just this. Oh yeah, your YC, you get 100K, and you're going to go spin up a web server, and your cost is going to be perfectly matched with your revenue. Like when your website blows up and starts getting a ton of traffic, well, you're going to have paying customers then. So all of a sudden, we have the two hottest categories are highly capital intensive, at least in theory, and then you have funds that are perfectly set up to fund those capital intensive businesses. So it's just like anyone with an idea, let's get a big check in there. But the problem is that if you wind up pivoting to something that isn't as capital intensive or doesn't find like the immediate product market fit, you wind up buried under this huge capital stack. And I think that's the pain people are feeling right now. But they'll probably get a call from Jeremy Giffon soon.
Jeremy, Mock Industries is Jeremy's like,
who knows?
No, I think that the challenge is so this happens with let's say I think the rule is, maybe it's Depew's law, which is the faster you get a lot of money, like the dumber you will be with it, right? And so if you win the lottery, you're going to just spend that money horrendously. And that's almost always what happens, because you didn't have to learn how money works. You didn't have to learn how hard it is to make it. And so you're just doing like crazy stuff. And this happens even with angel investing. People like, oh, I'm going to do angel investing. And their worst 5 investments sometimes you get these people that are like, oh yeah, my first 2 angel investments are unicorns, and that's because of the networks they were in. But more often it's somebody starts angel investing and makes like the worst 5 investments that they'll make in the first 5 deals that they do.
Yeah.
And so I think the challenge here is when money comes really fast and easy, like you're an MIT dropout that raises $50 million in the first year, you're just going to make a bunch of really bad decisions. It's everything from you're going to spend $400,000 on a brand identity because your VC connected you to the top
firm that seems good, right?
To the top agency, and you're not thinking about the real cost of that. You're going to make a hire that's not a good culture fit because they just care about cash comp, and you're going to just overpay for them, and then now you're dealing with this person that
not holding the bar on hiring.
Yeah,
you're
not.
I just need to hit my hiring quota. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I see this
or
a lot
you
with
optimize. You're telling these people get excited about being like, oh yeah, we're a 20-person team.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, you don't even know what you're building yet.
Yeah, you don't even need to be like fully starving, but just like a year or 2 of like being somewhat cash constrained is going to set the culture up for years where you're going to go back, and like the CEO is just going to be, when some VP comes to them and is like, I want to spend $500,000 on a branding package, they're going to be like, what? Like, I did our first brand myself. Like why do we need to jump there? Let's just do a half step. And then all of those are going to add up to like saving money and being a little bit more judicious and a little bit less like frivolous. And then you won't have a culture of frivolousness, which I think is like the real danger with like the
overall, when people are, I don't think it's bad for the world that this stuff happens, to be honest. And in fact, the entire model is predicated on if you back 20 MIT dropouts and one of them builds a generational firm, then it worked. That's the entire model of venture capital. So I think it's a funny tweet, and like I respect that point of view, but he's not really realizing what the real game of venture is, which is if one of these companies becomes 10% as big as SpaceX, then the entire investment strategy worked.
That's true, but he's not talking to venture capitalists here. He's talking to entrepreneurs.
His brothers.
Yeah, he's talking to the brothers. And so what he's saying is not that, like, yes, all of these deals could add up to plenty of funds doing well, and even the bad funds, they're going to return capital. They're going to be 1x funds, maybe 2x funds. They'll be okay. It's not like the cash will really get totally incinerated. The problem is that I think he's trying to just raise a flag to college dropout young people that it's like, yes, you can go and do the fake work of twisting your idea into something that fits a VC narrative and say, well, like we could be asset light, but we can raise more money if we say we're going to train our own model. Or we could do this, but if we say that we need to buy this huge manufacturing plant and put up a big American flag, we'll be able to raise more money. So let's go with that path, even if it's not the right path for our business, even if that's not what the capital structure of our industry demands. And so you wind up building for the VCs instead of for the market, for the customer, and for yourself. And so I think that's kind of the meta take here to some degree.
Yeah.
But got to kiss a lot of frogs. It's the game. Should we do this one? I love this one. Evan Armstrong writes, obviously I'm excited for my child, but also really wish I had like 2 more months to write. Just today, pre-product robotics company raising a $2 billion valuation. 2, Bridge getting bought at 90x revenue. 3, rumors about new models coming. Can't help but want to publish on this.
Amazing.
I know. This is a man who prioritizes work over everything else.
Skip paternity leave, brother.
It is the most important thing that keeps the society, keeps capitalism grinding. The relentless march of techno capital is nothing without those who are willing to put their family to the side.
I took off 36 hours when my son was born. Not necessarily proud of that, but he was born Saturday, like, in the early hours of the morning. 12 hour
Monday.
12 hour.
You're on call with
I
the East
legitimately
Coast.
had a 12-hour meeting of back-to-backs on Monday. But we had to, like, that was the only way. Like, we had to do that. I didn't do that with the second one. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's just a sign that Evan loves his work.
It's great.
And there's a lot of stuff. We wouldn't have this podcast if there wasn't stuff to talk about. So.
Also, I mean, underrated about this tweet, work-life balance always goes viral. So I don't know if this got dunked on, but like if you're rage baiting, like this is the best possible rage bait if you're just trying to grow your account, like because people will fight about this forever.
Yeah, because he could have tweeted, while I'm a big fan of organic intelligence being my new child, I'm really a fan of artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
And the child that I'm having today, I could have had the same child 400 years ago, but AI and large language models didn't exist 400 years ago.
Exactly.
So
if you just dial this up, if he just rewrites this, is like, I haven't seen my child in months, but I've been writing. Boom.
Yeah, they're actually, so Every is chugging along. I've subscribed to their stuff forever.
Yeah.
I think that they are too nice of guys to be in the media business. They spun out a word processing product, which seems cool. But they're not like Eric Newcomer, who's putting up 7 figures of EBITDA because, maybe they are now. I don't know. I have no idea. But I think that Evan is too nice to rage bait, like he only went 50% of the way there.
Yeah. What is the actual, it's Every?
Yeah. It's a media company. I think they're focused on AI.
Yeah. I've never seen them get absolutely raked over the coals by tech or the communists, and you got to have an enemy. If you don't have an enemy, you don't have an ally.
Yeah.
The only reason people rally together.
The enemy of my. Yeah.
No, seriously, you have to have an enemy. If you don't have an enemy, there's no reason for someone to be your ally.
We need to pick an enemy.
The working class, obviously.
There you go.
Yeah. We all know that the working class gets too much credit. And it's long and respect for the financial professional.
Blue collar.
Yeah, blue collar.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're clearly the enemy.
Yeah. We haven't done our jobs until people are calling us billionaires in a sort of negative.
Exactly. Pejorative.
Pejorative.
I mean, unironically, the enemy that I always focus on in the tech stuff is China, essentially, and the foreign
That's an
governments.
easy enemy. And that's so authentic to my lived experience because I studied abroad in Shanghai.
Yeah.
I studied while I was there at basically the Harvard of China. I worked at a tech accelerator while I was there. And within 48 hours of setting foot in that country, I knew that I wanted to do everything. I wanted to spend my life making sure that we contained China. And that they didn't export their sort of way of life to the world. So I don't have any issues with the people of China,
of course,
but their way of life.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. And I feel like that's, I always try and remind people in tech when there's these little feuds like, oh, Miami versus San Francisco, like which is cooler, or like the Gundo versus SF, like AI versus hard tech, or even like the intro fights between like the VC firms, like Andreessen, Sequoia, Founders Fund, like they're all beefing or whatever. And I'm like, okay, like there might be good reasons for these beefs, but like let's refocus on like the real battle here, which is like America.
They're all gonna enjoy a conversation at Milken.
Yeah. Everyone's on the same team here, and I try and refocus, especially like when the Gundo bros start going hard on SF. I'm like, do you think China is having these fights over Wuhan versus Shanghai? No, they say, what is Wuhan good at?
China.
Biotechnology, bioweapons development. What is Shenzhen good at? Copying American consumer electronics. Like they're both excellent in their own ways, in the same way that the Gundo is great at hard tech and San Francisco is great at AI. They're not fighting.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
They're working together as one team. We need to be one team over here in America.
Yeah, who's the we need to find the LP in Sequoia, Andreessen, and Founders Fund. This is probably Saudi.
Oh, there's tons. Not even Saudi.
That's going to be who's the one person that can put all the GPs on one group chat and be like, squash this
Yeah.
right now
like
in
that.
front of me.
You know who it is? I think it's Zuck's family office. You know that firm?
Yeah.
I forget what they're called, but I'm pretty sure they're LP and everything.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of others, endowments and whatnot.
Dad, the GPs are fighting again.
Yeah, I do think that I love the idea of like, being a founder became high status. So it was like, oh, I gotta graduate from college and get on the track and start a company.
No, drop out. I gotta get into a good school.
Then it was like drop out and like I'm just gonna go straight to angel investing or like start a VC firm. And it's like, okay, like kind of odd. And then we talked about that one guy who is like he's starting like fund management software. It's like one layer of abstraction. Pretty soon it's just gonna be like, I'm just gonna go be an LP. Like,
I'm gonna go straight to be an LP.
Straight to be an LP.
Yeah, the investing is something that I feel like I grew up so immersed in the Silicon Valley ethos of you can just do things, you can do anything.
Yeah.
That the number one way in which I've felt that experience really matters is in angel investing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just started angel investing and
Sure.
I didn't know, I didn't go to Jason Calacanis School of
I was
Angel
going to ask
Investing.
if you had done that.
Like I didn't do that. I just started investing in cool
Yeah.
ideas with smart people, and it's overall been very, fruitful, that strategy. But there's been a number of, it's like, okay, I talked with Zach
Yeah.
within 6 months of him incorporating Bridge, didn't invest.
Yep.
I met Shane from Polymarket, like
Yeah.
we would DM back in like 2021, and I didn't go back up the Brinks truck.
Yep.
and now, having had those experiences, I'm like, next time when I meet people like that, now I
Yep.
just figure out a way to give them money as fast as possible.
Yep.
And experience matters. Like
Yep.
my returns from this era of my investing life will be better than the prior era because of that learning.
Yeah. Well, are you going to invest in any fentanyl vaccines? You saw this article?
Oh yeah. This is I think I texted this to the group being
I think this is in Bloomberg. It says a fentanyl vaccine is a long shot that just might work. What did you find interesting about this?
So I just think it's funny because it's the private markets doing what they do best,
Yep.
which is finding solutions to problems that the government is not capable of solving. I just think that the government is probably a lot more able to tackle the fentanyl issue than
Well, they have a monopoly on violence, and they should enforce that at the ports, right?
right.
But-
And
But at the same time, yeah, I mean, if you sell this through medical clinics, potentially people come in when they're not at, or they're,
it's
when
just
they're
a
at rock
funny,
bottom, and they
it's
say,
just
yeah,
a
I'm done.
hilarious, yeah, they're at rock bottom.
And they say like,
they're
look,
like,
I'm done.
I'm
give me the
literally
thing."
going to buy some sketchy cocaine right now.
Yeah.
Please, can I get this vaccine?
So I
will it kick in the next 2 hours?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, but I think it's I really don't know who the customer is for this. I mean, I can imagine, but it seems like sort of a very, I don't know, like people that think, like I'm very happy to report that I don't ever expect to encounter fentanyl
Sure.
in my life.
Yeah.
And so this vaccine,
You know what I need? I need an ayahuasca vaccine. So then I can go into the jungle with all the tech
And not
billionaires and be like, yeah, let's go on this ayahuasca retreat. Totally. Like, and they're all getting one-shotted. And I'm just sitting there.
like a demigod.
White knuckling.
Yeah.
Getting stronger.
You're having to
Completely
fake.
unaffected.
You're having to fake.
I'm
the
like, oh yeah,
effects.
it's so crazy. Like the world's open. Like
Oh my
I had
God.
this brilliant idea. Like it's a nicotine company. You should invest. And they're like, wow,
Yeah.
that's what the demon told you? I was like, yeah, it told me that. It told me that nicotine pouches are going to be a
100.
big category.
20 on 200
Exactly.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think getting like if you're gonna do that vaccine, just start creating vaccines for everything. I mean, the vaccines are a great business model. So
It is.
I want a vaccine for.
Low testosterone.
Yeah, that's one. Another one would be like Inbox Zero. You know,
Yeah.
it's like a vaccine that
What if there was a microplastics vaccine? Take that, just your body just deflects the plastics.
Yeah, force field.
Force field. Anyway, I don't know how we're going to cover this, but the cover of The Economist this week is fantastic. It's the SpaceX rocket taking off the Starship, but instead of the core tube, it's just the dollar. And it says America's economy is the envy of the world, and it's a deep dive on the resilience of the American economy, often hated on, but extremely resilient. And Robert Sterling posts this like mega thread of all the things that he loves about America, and it's just amazing. I'll read some of this. Culture that celebrates risk-taking, ingrained hatred of bureaucracy, robust capital markets, Starbucks nitro cold brew, cheap and abundant oil, you can just do stuff, investment bankers that work till 2 a.m., low barriers to entry for entrepreneurship, manifest destiny, private equity, Delaware C corporations, M&A markets, meritocracy, low capital gains tax, McDonald's, New York City, University Greek life system, Walmart, GPU clusters, Sand Hill Road, Michael Jordan, 50 states competing for business, the Homestead Act, the old school DARPA, no union reps on corporate boards, like the entire state of Texas. Like he just riffed for so long and just sent this massive list of cool things. And
how are you not bullish?
So pumped up.
How are you not bullish after reading that?
You really have to be. But I love that it's two lenses on the same idea. Like, you know that The Economist wasn't writing like this, right? The Economist is going to have this very thoughtful article that explains basically the same conclusion
in a much more complicated way.
Much more nuanced
and
way.
I like how it almost every single thing listed off was like intense American consumerism.
Yep.
and then finance.
Yeah. Ability to get filthy rich even if you're born poor. State school engineering programs, pickup trucks. Yeah. It's just amazing. It really is such a wonderful country. I always like that teal line where they're like, "Oh, are you going to leave?" He's like, "To where?"
Yeah.
It's the least bad option. Like, you might complain about America, but it is the best. We're just number one in everything.
I think we grew up in the period where young people thought that America was bad.
Very good.
I don't know what was the cause of it, but it's almost like things were so good here that people were trying to find reasons to not like it for some reason. But I've been to 40 plus countries, many of which I've spent, a week plus in. And the closest thing I got to wanting to live there was I would buy a vacation home in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Just because Switzerland is outside of the United States. Like, I would say Switzerland is my favorite country that's not the United States. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I just love being there. I could see spending a lot of time there. But I never once in my life was thinking I want to spend 3/4 of the year
Every
here.
time I traveled, I would always just come back to like I went to Thailand and I was like, oh, this is Russia's Mexico. Like, I went to Cape Town, South Africa. It's just LA. Like, there's a beach and then there's mountains. It's beautiful. It's amazing. People drive around on freeways. It's very similar to LA. Yeah. Like, you go to all these different countries and it's like like America is so unique in that we have Manhattan. So that's like your Tokyo, your high finance, like really dense city. You have LA, SF, unrivaled, Miami, but then you also have Hawaii, like a chain of islands. So it's like all of a sudden, like
underrated.
Fiji's great, but it's a lot farther and it's not 10x better than Hawaii.
What's the next Hawaii?
Alaska. Like, okay, I never need to go to Russia. And America really just did a good job of capturing like every single biome. So there are tropical areas, there are desert areas, there are mountainous areas, forest areas, tundra. Like, we have it all. Whereas very few countries have every single biome covered. Russia doesn't have tropical areas. They got to go to Thailand.
Yeah. The thing that you need to do if you're American, and I think a lot of our listeners right now are American, is as you go about your day-to-day life, or you go on a work trip, or you go on a vacation within the United States, view it from the eyes of some Italian kid who grew up in a small village and is visiting like Los Angeles, right? Like we're sitting here recording with a straight shot view of skyscrapers that are home to some of America's greatest companies, right? If you're from a small fishing village and you get to look out and see KPMG, I mean, that's like a core memory, right? And so it's our duty to view our world through their eyes. And when I drive back and I'm passing, the other Jonathan Club, the beach club, and seeing, this Ferris wheel on a pier, or I'm driving on PCH, or I see that I'm on the 405 and I see the Hollywood sign, really Chateau Marmont, these iconic places. It's important to try to don't just have your eyes glaze over and look back at TikTok,
Enjoy it. Yeah. America's undefeated. It's not going anywhere, no matter what happens. Sorry.
This one was good.
I have this riff with, how Josh Steinman tweets, "Good morning, we're going to win," every day. And I was thinking about what is a mantra that, you could tweet every single day. And mine was just listing out every single country that's not America and calling them un-American.
Yeah.
Canada is un-American. France is un-American. Greece is un-American.
Un-American is a good...
Because it's literally true.
That's a potentially a phrase that we could coin.
Yeah.
That we could own.
It's literally true. Canada is un-American.
Almost everything that I don't like is un-American.
Yeah. Should we talk about Tim Ferriss?
Tim Ferriss is un-American. I like Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss is the most American.
I'm just saying I like Tim, but this specific
so he
video.
put up a clip from his podcast where he did a 30-day dopamine detox. No caffeine, alcohol, sex, or sweetness. He didn't do, which sounds like I'm not going to hug my wife or something, but he was saying that he would not consume any sugar or anything that was sweetened.
Yeah, the funny thing with this is
Why?
I could do all those things, but whatever dopamine release that I negated from skipping coffee or nicotine or any of these other, or a nice piece of chocolate cake in the evening, would immediately be undone by picking up my daughter and giving her a hug,
exactly.
Like the same whatever.
I mean, I think that to steel man him, that is the point of the dopamine detox, is that you'll proportionally get more dopamine from picking up your daughter. Right. You're not like, okay, this is like 110% of TikTok. It's like TikTok isn't even in the equation, so it's just like the purest of the pure.
Yeah, for you it would just be waking up in the morning and being like, I have 3 sons.
Yeah, exactly. I do wonder if he stopped posting during this detox.
Yeah,
because that's the real dopamine for a content creator.
Yeah.
Did he stop capital allocating? Did he stop investing? Because the rush. I do think
Tim stopped angel investing.
Oh, really?
Like it was too much
dopamine.
Yeah, I mean the angel investing is deeply addictive.
It is.
It makes no sense to do financially.
Yeah. I always wonder with these dopamine detoxes if when you cut something out, like usually you find yourself finding a crutch. Like I notice if I stop using one, I stopped using a lot of the endless feeds, but then I find myself just opening up the Wall Street Journal more, and that's probably better, but I'm still using that.
You're still
for
a rat
whatever.
on the treadmill.
Exactly.
Going to hit the.
So I wonder what his cheat meal was during this dopamine detox. What was he doing to get?
Yeah,
dopamine?
I don't. The only
probably posting.
The only video that I would watch. It's funny. I don't think either of us watched the video.
I did. It was him talking to Kevin Rose, the guy who founded Dig.
Yeah. So I would watch a 30-day long video of Tim doing a dopamine detox.
Yeah.
That's the real dopamine detox, is just to watch Tim's extremely boring life in monk mode.
I love it.
It takes 30 days, and you can sleep when he sleeps.
When he sleeps.
But you have to be woken up by his alarm.
That's pretty sick.
So
that's probably
that's a whole category of content where you just live someone else's life.
Yeah, I feel like that's something Jocko premium subscribers would pay for, some sort of live stream, come live my life with me, tap into this live stream, and you're just gonna come along for this whole thing. Like when I wake up, you wake up. When I go to the gym, you go to the gym. It's kind of people pay
Morning,
for that in
he goes,
person.
yeah.
When you do that virtually, it's pretty scalable.
You can scale it. Yeah.
And
That's definitely
and
a high.
There's definitely like a lot of his like offsite events. Obviously, very bounded by like the number of people that can attend. But if you just put out the 30-day video, like
Imagine
anyone can do it. It's like a course.
falling asleep, listening to Jocko effectively tell you a bedtime story. Today was a great day. Tomorrow is going to be a better one. And then he just like is sort of rambling, and you sort of fall asleep, and then he says, "Morning, sweetheart." It's 4 a.m.
It's 4 a.m.
I don't want to be up right now. You don't want to be up right now.
I got to start posting the Jocko wake ups with the Patek at 4 a.m. Because he has like the really athletic like Navy SEAL watch.
G-Shock.
Like G-Shock, yeah. And it's just the Patek at 4 a.m. Be like, time to go to work. It's the best. I love Jocko. He's incredible.
I love Jocko. Jocko, as soon as he's a billionaire, he can call in and be on the show.
For sure. He's going to be close. He has,
Only a matter of time.
Multiple products that are like the top on Amazon. His business is insane. He has so many different monetization methods. Did Senra ever send you that like breakdown? Oh, it's great. It's like it's looking like in a single long Jocko episode, like all of the ad reads and all of the monetization that's going on, there were like 10 or 15 different products and calls to action. So it's like an athletic greens competitor, an LMNT competitor, a protein powder, but then it's also like a subscription to the premium service. And then
I bought his
like,
book.
Yeah, the books. And then it's like,
day.
There's $100 tier for like a course that you buy and you watch. There's like $1,000 tier for like going to a big conference. There's a $10,000 tier for going to like the VIP conference.
Getting
only
kicked
like
in the
10 people.
nuts by Jocko.
There's a 50,000. So like no matter what you're willing to spend, he does really, really good at like price laddering and price discrimination. Because that's one of the hardest things with podcasting and why it works with ads is that you have some billionaires in your audience. With us, it's like mostly billionaires, but then you also have some people that are like, they're not billionaires yet. And so they don't have the ability to drop, $100,000 on, a private event with the Technology Brothers. But how do you get money out of both of those audience cohorts?
Yeah.
Well, you got to have an affordable product.
NetJets is a really good example, right? Where you might not be able to afford a private jet. And we certainly have friends who are billionaires who own their own jets.
Yep.
They'll still use NetJets, right? It's not a one or the other.
Yep. But it's also a reason why you might hear some ads on this show for things that have lower ticket prices, because we want
Sleep, right?
We want to monetize every single listener here. That's the goal of the show, to be the most profitable podcast in history, and that means that no matter who you are, no matter how much what your W-2 says, no matter what your Roth IRA says, we want to get the most money out of you. Should we move on to Corey Levy?
Oh, I tried to keep it together.
So Corey Levy, it's funny because this got dunked on, but I love everyone involved in this. And is this Ben from Vesto here? I don't know. It looks like one of my friends. I don't know. But Ramp held an event with Khosla, with Keith, called The Art of Hiring, and it featured Brian Chesky, Mike Shebit, and Keith. Talking about how to hire and founder mode. And Corey Levy, who runs Z Fellows, prolific early stage angel investor, essentially. I don't know, incubator, accelerator, I don't know what term he likes, but he wrote kind of a breakdown, some notes from the Art of Hiring event earlier today. And he starts with Keith, and so he ats Keith. And the first line that gets cut off when you see the tweet is just, "Don't hire anyone over the age of 30." And then there's like 25 other things that are all like super reasonable, but he led with the most controversial thing. And so there's a community note now that says age discrimination in hiring is illegal in the US. Anyone who follows the advice from the first point is potentially committing a crime, which I just love.
Yeah.
But obviously he wasn't saying that literally. He's saying that,
I could see Keith saying that literally. He's also he understands the art of rage bait.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And using saying controversial things to
Yes.
generate attention, which
Yeah.
does other things.
He's compressing the idea of like, you need young energy in your organization. You need people that are hungry, who aren't resting, investing, who aren't already millionaires, who want to make their equity work. And so you need people that are show up and are hungry. And so how do you compress that down into something that will stick in someone's mind? Oh, well, don't hire anyone over the age of 30. Now, it's probably a lot more nuanced than that. And I think Keith, if you talk to him for an hour, he would get into that. And there's a million reasons why. And if you look at his companies and all the other companies, I'm sure there's people over the age of 30 at these companies. But it's a great way to get that to stick in someone's mind.
So it's funny because there's a...
Here, just turn the mic towards you.
I was talking with a founder that used to work for Keith and raise money from Keith, and on the way over here today, and running a business for the first time. It's absolutely crushing. He's about to raise like a very hot Series A.
Cool.
And he has taken almost all of Keith's advice. I don't know about this advice, but he certainly has learned so much from Keith.
Yeah.
And the only thing that he didn't follow was the Miami thing. He originally started the company in Miami, and at one point, it was probably the scariest day of his life telling Keith that he was going to go back to SF. But almost everything else he's followed to a T, and it's just worked.
I think I know this company. Yeah.
It's worked so well. It's worked so well. This is Dara at Delphi.
I'm an investor as well.
Yeah. So it's worked so well for Dara. Like, ignored the hype.
Yep.
Building in a very like hot space, which is like consumer AI, has ignored the hype, stayed focused, focused on customers, all these things that Keith has parroted and reiterates and things like that, and it's just worked extremely well. Like it and so the funny thing with I will say that Dara hired one of my old engineers who is over 30, who does have children, but that guy's a fucking grinder. So yeah, I mean, I think overall, I do think about this sometimes, where as a 28-year-old that has the lifestyle of something that's more found from somebody in their mid-30s, at least in tech, or mid-40s, depending on how late to children.
Mid-50s.
Yeah, mid-50s. I do. That is almost like a recurring nightmare of like, if I was competing against myself without children, how much more would I be getting done? Things like that. I do think that the counter side to that is when people are in their 30s, they can't afford to lose in the same way, right? So it's like there is this whole other side of it, and they have the benefit of. And so when you look at this tweet saying don't hire anyone over the age of 30, combined with young college dropouts raising $30 to $50 million pre-product, the combination of those two things is terrible, right? And you brought this up with Facebook earlier, being like Facebook having a really veteran engineer who brought structure and experience and all these different things. So anyways, I would say that overall, Keith's advice, I'm like very bullish on any founder that takes like 90% of Keith's advice to heart and follows it. I think it's a really good framework, but again, the don't take anything too literally.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Even
it's
Miami
just like
is
giving. I mean,
Miami's
the
like
whole
a
founder
state of
mode thing.
mind in many ways.
And also, I mean, Miami is still like, I think we've talked about this before, but I mean, it still is just like a phenomenal place to go meet a lot of extremely
Phenomenal
wealthy
people.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think everyone agrees that it is behind on hiring engineering talent, but in terms of just like lots of
Capital
rich
markets.
and powerful people having money there, like if you're a founder and you're doing a fundraising trip, like stopping in Miami and meeting a bunch of people is like very doable and very beneficial.
Yeah.
It's also just like an awesome place to live, or an awesome place to visit when you're a founder and you've been grinding in some like, Tenderloin complex in San Francisco, and you get to like, you don't just have to go down to Sand Hill Road, which is like even more boring. You get to go to Miami and hang out at all these people's houses.
I
which is
know
great.
that I will absolutely own property in Miami at some point in my life. I'm not in a huge rush to do it, but I really enjoy it there, and we're going next week.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But yeah, I'm excited for this video to drop. I'm sure that they're going to record it and put it out. I think it'll be good. I think they're all really great.
It's funny. We're
Chesky's
giving him the benefit of the doubt, and Keith is like literally telling all these young kids, I swear to God, do not like. I cannot be more. I cannot be more explicit about
He's like,
this.
never.
If somebody is 30 years old and one day disqualified. Write it into your HR write it into your hiring policies. Put it on your wall.
Yeah. I don't even know where this is from, but you dropped this in the group chat, and I just wanted to read it because I thought it was a funny quote from maybe like a Substack or something. This guy says, I look for the type of guy in London who gets up at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning when his kids are still in bed and logs on to a poker site so that he can pick off the U.S. drunks coming home on a Saturday night. I hired a guy like that. He usually clears 5 or 10 grand every Sunday morning before breakfast, taking out the drunks playing poker because they're not very good at it, but their confidence has gone up a lot. Someone who understands an edge. I love that.
I don't even think we have to add commentary.
I think it's just like cheers.
It's just cheers to that. Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, find an edge.
The hard thing with people like that is they usually end up making so much money they're really hard to hire.
Yeah, exactly. If you're making 10 grand a week, that's $500K a year. Like, what a job are you offering them? I mean, I guess this is probably for like a hedge fund position or something, or somebody who understands that, like, yeah, this is maybe not going to stick around forever. Maybe, I don't know. Should we close with the new king of podcasting, Harry Stebbings?
Harry,
$400 million fund.
I will say I think that picture could come back to bite.
So the story is podcaster Harry Stebbings raises one of Europe's biggest venture funds. The British firm 20VC pulls in $400 million to invest in early stage tech startups. And he claims it's to make Europe great again. Is he a Trump guy? Or is he just like riffing on that?
I bet he's a Trump guy. He appreciates great entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Right? Trump is.
I feel like he's pretty like
apolitical
to like because like if you go super hard
there's
one way or the
nothing
other,
there's nothing less cool than being not living in the US but being obsessed with US politics. It's like get a life, you know?
Yeah.
Like get a life.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think it's amazing for podcasting. It's amazing for Harry. He's now, we kind of have him, if we want to build the most profitable podcast in the world, he's pulling down 80 million of management fees on that fund. Yeah. He's in our
big shoes to fill.
Target on his back, right?
Target on his back.
It's not that, but we're positive sum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do a $500 million fund.
Exactly.
So
anyway, congrats to Harry.
Congrats to Harry.
It is interesting. I feel do you think his audience is primarily entrepreneurs or VCs? Because he really focuses. He does get some entrepreneurs on the show, but it's mostly VCs that go on the show. So he probably has an incredible network. So he can get small checks into deals. But like, what happens when he's interviewing like the Sequoia guys, but then they're not going to let him like steal a hot round from them. Yeah. So how does that work in terms of deal flow?
Yeah, the reason that I'm bullish overall on. I'm not bullish on the European focus.
Sure. I mean, I guess that
if he's going to invest if he's going to invest the full 400 million in Europe, that's concerning.
It seemed like the real alpha here was just he is probably one of the greatest bridges between European LPs and US investments because he's a name brand in America, and if you are wealthy in Europe, you can't necessarily just call up an American VC firm and LP and do it. Yeah. So I've seen this happen a couple times where people have raised really big funds because it's like, they happen to be super connectors in like Brazil. And so they can go around and just pull all the Brazilian capital together. And then they come in and they invest it in America. Yeah. But they're providing that service to the Brazilian high net worth individuals and institutions. Yeah.
The reason to be bullish on Harry is that what David Senra has done for founders, Harry has done for contemporary VCs. So in the same way that David will be talking about founder and then tie in, here's how these other 3 founders also thought similarly and applied this way of thinking to their business. He's doing the same thing with VCs, where he will be talking with one VC and be like, well, that's similar to how, Peter thought about the initial investment in SpaceX or whatever.
Sure.
So I think that being a student, he's now a student and a player, right?
Yeah.
And he's drawing on, I think it's a very real thing that he could text probably 50 of the best GPs and get a response within, a day of like, hey, and they can be like, well, here are the traps in aerospace.
Yeah.
Here's why this won't work.
Sure.
This is actually really interesting. Let's look at it together.
Yeah.
Like that's real alpha.
Yeah. That's great. Well, cheers to Harry, and we'll see you next time.
That's a good place to stop.
Thanks for watching or listening.